Hey everyone, how you doing? My name is Jamil Jude, and I have the honor of being the moderator for today's Father's Day panel. Every day is Father's Day, especially for us Black fathers out here, and I'm just really thankful to everybody on the team of the Black Motherhood and Parents New Play Festival for gathering these amazing men here. First, to talk a little bit about what it is that we do. And Garlia, thank you for inviting me to be the moderator. I want to give you space to just welcome everyone to the panel.
Jamil, thank you. And as I sit here, I'm gonna hop out. But as soon as all three of you came on, I'm just smiling, and all I want to do is I just want to hear what you have to say. This is the second annual Black Motherhood and Parenting New Play Festival. It's a partnership between Blackboard Plays and PAAL, and I sit on and I'm involved with both. I'm the founder of Blackboard Plays, and we are a reading series devoted to Black playwrights, and then I'm the producing director of PAAL. And so last year, these two orgs came together to create a festival that was devoted to the stories of Black parents. We have this fantastic Mother's Day panel that I won't ever forget. And so this year we've expanded and not only had a Black moms panel, but also a Black a panel for Father's Day. So I just want to sit and hear all the things that you three have to say, because it is so important to contribute to these stories about Black families. So with that, I'm going to bid you gentlemen farewell for a little bit. Okay.
Yes, let us do the business of talking about being Black dads, Black fathers, people who show up as caretakers. I'm really excited to have these two caretakers and providers and people who show up for others chatting with me today. Let's go ahead and just do some introductions and let everyone know who I have the pleasure to speak with today. Let's start with you, Emmanuel.
Hey, everybody. I'm Emmanuel Wilson. I am father of two, and I am the co-executive director of the Dramatists Guild of America.
My name is Freedom Bradley Ballantyne. I go by he, him, his pronouns. I am the associate artistic director, or an associate artistic director at the Old Globe in San Diego, as well as the director of arts engagement here. I'm the father of two children and the husband of a beautiful wife, Patricia McGregor, and also, a caretaker of, my community, my family, and my organization.
No doubt. And I gave a little bit of a thing earlier. My name is Jamil Jude. I am the artistic director at True Colors Theater Company in Atlanta, Georgia. Shout out to the A. I am the father of one, Journey Jude, but another one to come soon, which will make it an even better and bigger household. I'm really thankful for my wife, Lauren Jude, who holds it down. While she is not a theater artist, she definitely is a food scientist and culinary artist, and we really, really are appreciative of her. I use the he, sweet pronouns. I want to get into it with our time together, and I want to really talk about this idea of how we show up. Freedom, you mentioned earlier about being a caretaker for the community and things like that. How do you learn how to show up? Who are some of the role models that you've had in your life on how you show up in these bodies that we traverse the world in and show care, and how, let's just start there. How did you learn? Who are those role models? Let's start with you, Emmanuel. Who are those role models that showed you how to show up?
Oh, definitely my mother. I don't know my father, and I have a very female-heavy family, female-heavy life. So those were the individuals, my mother, my sister, those were the individuals that taught me what it meant to be there for one another. Watching what my mother went through to raise me, raise my brother and sister. I'm the youngest of three. Watch the good things and bad, you know? And you sort of look at that and you sort of go, all right, one day this is what I'm going to do. But the most important thing my mother taught me was to tell the truth. And that's some hard, that's some hard thing. That's a hard thing to hear, because especially when you want somebody to be like, come on, I love you. Hold me, tell me. Like, no, this is it. Boom. Like, this is what you need to do. So that's the way I love. That's the way I give care. I do it by telling you the truth, because that's the best thing I can do for you. Yeah, I'll give you the hug. I'll be there for you. But sometimes you just need to know what you need to know, even sometimes when you don't want to hear it, you know?
Yeah, certainly. Freedom, same question to you. Who'd you learn how to show up from?
Oh, I learned that from, you know, I'm fortunate. I've had three fathers in my life. Two of them have been incredibly impactful in forming who I am as a person. But how I learned to show up was, I learned that from them. I learned that from my community. You know, I learned that from my friends. I've learned that from the people that I've kept around me. You know, I've learned that by having a set of values that are code that I live by, you know, and you know, some of that stuff is just, some of it is also, you know, showing up is figuring out inside of yourself, listening to that voice inside yourself of what's right and what's what's not right. You know, I wish that sometimes I could say that I read a lot of How to Show Up in a book, but I didn't. You know, I learned it from, you know, following my instincts. You know, one of my fathers was really good with that. You know, I used to second guess things a lot, and he would say, no, just go deeper inside, go deeper inside. You know, like you know the answer, trust yourself. You know, and I learned how to really, I have a strong sense of community. You know, like I grew up in a Black neighborhood. You know, I grew up with, you know, Black parents. I've always had an internal mechanism that wants to be of service to my community, you know, to my family, to people around me. That's how I learned to show up, you know, is you know, listening to older people, you know, listening to people that had their head on somewhat straight. But you know, you also learn by the mistakes that you see others making, you know, how other people didn't show up, or how other people, you know, have values that don't necessarily align with yours. So, you know, I try to take in from a little bit from everybody, and that helps inform how I show up in the world.
Yeah, just to quickly, you know, share my piece. You know, I really think about my father, Patrick Jude, and although our relationship has changed so much over the years, especially once I became a dad, and he retired from the military, I think we started to really change, and I learned so many things from him, and also learned the things from him. You know, like we say, we take the good and the bad. But I'm also really thankful to have had community, father figures, uncles in the community. I want to, you know, make sure I mention Mary McClinton, and just put his name out there for the ways in which he fathered me in the early parts of my career in Minneapolis. James Williams, amongst others. Don't want to start naming too many people because you might forget somebody.
You name one, you better name them all.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not naming nobody.
Exactly.
Oh, real helpful.
I had to curtail it just then, y'all. So charge this to my head, not my heart. But you know, you all talked about just that instilling of values. Both of those men that I just mentioned, J-Dub and Marion, they both early before I became a father, talked to me about the ways in which they learned how to father and also be an artist. I want to talk, guys, take us back to prior to becoming fathers, but still identifying as an artist. how has your approach to your artistry been impacted by becoming a father? So, think back, off camera, I asked you all, when did you start your fatherhood journey? So think back to the beginning of that. And then how has your relationship to your craft, to the way you show up, how has that been impacted by the way you father? And I understand that it's an evolutionary process.
Mm.
Who wants to start on that one? I can definitely volunteer somebody.
Like that's a I was fortunate when, like when my son was born, I was fortunate and privileged enough to be able to take a year off of my life to really, figure out who I wanted to be as a father and as a person in society, and that really aligned with, who I was prior to that. But really, like I've always done mission-driven work, and just to, once I had him, I really wanted to do that even more so, and make sure that, the work that I was doing was something that he could be proud of. A lot of the work that I do right now is centered around, using art, using theater to have impact in our communities and having impact in our society, and not just, doing art for the sake of, art's sake. So, I mean, it really impacted me in that. I was thinking just yesterday, I haven't had I've been struggling, like, oh man, what am I going to be able to do? Like you're always looking for that next big idea. And I had it, and just, the other morning, I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning with a big idea of how to use theater to teach young people in our communities financial literacy. And I was having lunch with the banker, and he was like, yeah, we don't have much discretionary funds. He's like, it's all around financial literacy. And he's like, like you can make a play maybe about that. And I was like, he's like, there's not really that much you can do in theater. And I was like, And I woke up the other morning, I was like, there's, right now we're really focusing in on, the art side, like how to write, how to act, like how to design, how to do all that stuff. But there's a whole other component about producing, about project management, about budgets, around, investments that we make as theater companies, like all the payroll, taxes, all those things that we as artists can struggle with sometimes. But if we gave those reins to young people to teach them something that we didn't have or we didn't get, in large degrees, some of us got it, but some of us, many of us didn't get that financial literacy. And to be able to use art to teach financial literacy, as well as to teach, how to develop and support people, how to develop their own communities, their own jobs, how to write business plans, how to do all that stuff that you would go around, grant proposals, all the things that we do in theater that nobody really, like, that doesn't get the highlights. When you look at theater, you're looking at the tip of the iceberg, and underneath is all these systems that go to make the theater possible. So my idea is that using those things that are underneath the water to show our kids on how to develop themselves in a different way, using theater. So that's I think that might be, one of the ways that I just decided when I had a child, like how am I making the world better? How am I making the world better? Not just my children's world, like that pod that we have, but how am I making an impact in society so that his world is better and the people that are around him have access to that, whether they know him or not, but how are we making this world better?
Same question to you, Emmanuel. Talk to me about a little bit, pre-parenthood journey, and then now, how do you think that your relationship to your craft has changed?
Sometimes theater making can be a selfish enterprise, right? It's about my voice. About me being seen, it's about getting the applause, it's about me getting produced, it's about the story I want to tell. And the powerful experience that I went through is that having kids taught me it's not about me. It's not about me. Like, none of this is about me. I'm here to share. I'm having a shared experience with everyone else around me. And applying that to how I operate in the theater, even in telling stories, is like, there's an audience there. They're there. How am I connecting with them? How am I responsible for them? What do they walk away with, right? How can I use this art form to help them forget? How can I use this art form to help them think? What shocks them? What propels them forward? And the great thing about having kids is, the number one thing, you got to keep them alive, right? You got to keep them alive.
The number one rule. That's the number one rule.
You got to keep them alive. You got to keep them going. And when they're young, you're like, okay, don't bump into anything. Don't bump your head. The head is soft. You're losing your mind. They get older. Then they start, the mouth starts developing. They have their own opinions. And you realize as they get older that they see the world in a different way than you do. That however you taught them in a way for them to fully express themselves and be themselves and be centered in the world, especially if you're raising children of the global majority. Especially, you gotta put that extra sauce on top to be like, okay, now here's these things, because you got to fight a little bit harder. And so all of that taught me, like, oh, there are bigger ideas out there in the world than mine. I need to listen. Art making is not always about me. It's about my relationship to the people that I share in that space. We share, it's a communion, it's a community. And that's the powerful act of theater. It's sitting around the campfire, telling stories, and building the community, sharing stories from one generation to another. So that's what's happened to me. It's made me rethink, like, oh, I'm gonna write a play and it's gonna be the best play ever. It's like, okay, I want it to be a good play, but when this play is in front of an audience, what do they get out of it? Okay, because that's their time, that's their energy. They want to love this. They want to do. And then what happens after that? What happens to the community after that? What does the space do to hold those people in communion with each other? So, I mean, having children is a powerful act. Come on.
That's certain.
Oh my God.
That is certain. You all both mentioned the role of leader in your responses a little bit. I'm paraphrasing to try to grab at that word and that idea of putting forth a plan, an idea. Not to say that leaders aren't listeners, because I heard both of you all talk about listening, receiving feedback as well. As artists, we have an opportunities to create the environments in which we want, the worlds in which the play will exist and things like that. And as fathers, I imagine that you all, I can speak for myself, also create those types of environments and those worlds in which we want our partners, our children, the people that we care for to provide. I want to talk a little bit about that duality, both as artists and as fathers and as shapers of space. So many of the narratives in our field, both positive and negative, have ideas of what Black fatherhood looks like, should look like, has looked like. Our concepts and identities of masculinity have had necessary changes over time. Just from your own individual perspective, let's not think broad or whatever. Let's not make some edicts, but just for how you all show up as individuals. Can you talk a little bit about what, Freedom, you mentioned values. What values, what intentionality do you all bring when you're trying to shape and create those worlds and father those new environments for your children, for the people that you care for, and as artists, as the people who you all welcome into your spaces? Emmanuel, let's go ahead and start with you. Oh, I'm sorry, Freedom. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it doesn't matter. I had I'd come to a realization that I was a better boss than I was a father. And I'm glad that I came to that realization earlier in life. And I had an accident a few years ago. I was on one of those scooters, like my son, those little Razor scooters. And I'm too damn big for a little ass Razor scooter. All right, number one, I shouldn't have been on it. But I was riding it with him, and I was going down a hill, and I hit a patch of cement and flipped over, cracked my skull, was laying on the ground. I felt, in my mind, it went like this. I was on the scooter, I was on the ground, I was getting up off the ground. In real life, I was on the ground. There was blood coming from my head. I was on the ground. My son was pushing me. I was on the ground. I wasn't moving. I was on the ground. He went and sat down. I was on the ground. He started crying. I heard him, and I woke up. And I realized after that, that life is precious and life is short. And a lot of people had come to visit me, when my skull was fractured. And there were people that I work with. In San Diego, I don't have, like, my family's not here. It's my community is really, the people that I work with. And there was so much love for me. And they all talked about how great a boss I was, how great a supervisor I was, how supportive I was of them. And I looked at my son, and I was at that time really hard on him. I mean, I was harder on my son than I was on people that I worked with. And I looked at myself and I said, I don't talk to these people that I work with nearly as hard as I talk to him, thinking that I'm doing the thing that's helping to raise this Black man and making him tough. I was like, it changed me. And I said, I need to lead more with love with him. I need to lead more with care with him. I need to talk with him with support. When he makes a mistake, it's not the end of the world. He's not going to die from it. This level of perfection that I was expecting him to be was not humanly possible, and I was putting it on him. And I thank God. I thank our ancestors. I thank everybody for waking me up, because that cry that I heard was a cry to wake me up. And it really has informed my relationship with him. I lead much more with love with him. I try to be, I'm not perfect, but I really do try to have much more patience with him, much more patience with my children in general, and want to be for them I want to be the type of father that I am, as much as the type of leader that I am for other people within our community, and I don't want there to be that separation, that I'm one way and a different way for my children. I can do both of those.
Mm. Mm. You're gonna have to ask that question again, because I got lost in the story, and then it just hearing that just took me to places, and I was like, oh wow.
Well, share with me where the places you went. Like let's go there. I'm interested in that.
I'm always thinking of that relationship of being a leader and a parent, and how do you balance that? You know what I mean? I tend to work a lot. I'm the type of person that will work late into the night, because for me, I got to a certain age where my kids were growing up, and I saw that I wasn't moving my dreams forward. And here I am propelling theirs, and sooner or later they're gonna catch up. And they're going to ask, well, who are you? And I wasn't ready for that. I was just like working a completely different job in a different industry, making money, sending them to Catholic school, you know, like, because that's what I had to do. And at some point I was like, well, who am I? And so that relationship to my work and how it impacts them and how it impacts me, it's like it's like a feedback loop, right? Because I work hard to take care of them, but I also work hard to make sure that I can define myself for them, right? That I'm somebody for them. And I want them to see that things are possible, because I think we have, again, my oldest is 19, my youngest is 12. You know, I think the current generation sort of looks at the world and be like, well, everything's a bunch of bullshit. So, you know, y'all messed up everything, and you know, now it's our responsibility to fix it. And I go, you know what? There's possibilities in the world. As bad as the news can be on a daily basis, because everyone has a phone and you can see everything that happens around the world, even though most of the time it gets ignored, we can still try. So I want that hope for them. But how do I give them that hope when I'm working all the time and I'm not with them? Do you know what I mean? How do I do that? So it's just hearing your journey on that you were a better boss than a father, and how you looked at it too. I think that sort of set me off, and I'm like, you know, because that's the listening part of parenting, is that you are constantly listening and adapting, and you're watching them, and you're watching how they make their way in the world, and you're seeing what they need, and you're seeing when they need you to back off, and you're seeing when they need you to come in even when they don't ask for it. And it just, you're seeing how the world treats them, and you want to protect them from all of it, but at the same time you want them to be able to go head first and get everything they want for themselves, but still remain whole as a human being, right? Like, you know, at the end of the day, you want to raise children who are whole people and have the capacity to understand what works and what doesn't work for them, instead of blindly going forward. So I don't know, that whole story just made me go there. So that's why I don't remember the question.
That's all good. Like, and I love where you're going, because it's leading me to another thing that I want to talk about a little bit. You know, and that's like, I want to talk a little bit about guilt. And I'll start here with like a personal story. Like my daughter, just even as I was going down here to record this podcast, I'm currently in Denver working on a show, and my family was lucky enough to be able to have them come out here and stay with me in the apartment. And right now my daughter, she's 4. She's like effusive in her love and things like that, and literally like holding on to my leg, like, daddy, but like, I want to play, I want to go, and I want to hang out and stuff like that, and like crying. And like, I often feel like an immense level of guilt of like, am I actually working hard, or should I be spending more time being a present father, being a more supportive partner, right? Like, you know, I'm currently the sole breadwinner, right? Like, you know, Lauren is able to now like, you know, work from home and do and really caretake for Journey. But the bulk of the bills get paid thanks to my works, right? So there's a call to work so that the bills and that you can provide, and everybody has the lifestyle that they want to live. And there's also those emotional, social, and like just the fun and sometimes the challenges of parenting that my partner needs, that my daughter needs. And I often feel guilt, right? You know, even sometimes in this art life, having fun doing the work, I feel guilty. I was having a moment in rehearsal. I was like, yo, I'm having fun in rehearsal, hanging out. And then I immediately felt guilty and said, well, what about my daughter? What's my daughter doing? What's my partner doing? I want to ask you all, how do you all navigate that guilt, especially when it comes to Black men and our mental health? How are you all processing that guilt
those mental health challenges that come along with showing up and trying to be a parent in the world, and also existing in these Black bodies in an American society that doesn't show love to us?
I, even just in my previous comment, I'm constantly comparing myself to the generation that raised me, because that was a generation for especially many women who sometimes gave up everything to raise us, right? Gave up everything. I was talking to my mother the other day, and she was like, yeah, I took the test to become a police officer and I passed. And I was like, what? I was like, what? Wait a second, what? Hold on, you never told me that. She's like, yeah, I didn't want to carry a gun. But even her saying that, it's like, oh, wait a second. She had a completely different life and dreams and ideas and things that she wanted for herself. So I'm always trying to balance out how my kids are getting older. At some point, they're going to have their own lives, and I need to have my own life. So I sit in that guilt all the time, but I know that if I don't work on me while I'm raising them, who will I be when they're my age, right? Who will I be? Because that's if we talk about caregiving and taking care of our communities, sometimes we're taking care of people who didn't get a shot because they were caretakers too, and they gave up everything. Sometimes because they didn't have a choice. They didn't have the resources. They didn't have the community. They didn't have so I look at my mother. My mother's 75 years old, and I love my mother with all of my heart. But then there's a part of me that pushes against that, because she's even saying to me, she's like, don't call me mom anymore. My name is Barbara. And even in that act of like, I am more than a parent. I am more than a mother to 3 kids. I have always been more. And I look at that and go, that's something I have to remember. I have to be able to show up for my kids. I have to be able to show up for myself. It makes me feel horrible sometimes, because sometimes all I want to do is be with them. But they're getting to a place where they don't want to hang out with me. So I'm like, okay, you don't want to hang out with me. I gotta have something to do. The dream is that, one is 25, one is this age, and we can sit around a dinner table and everybody can pay a portion of a bill. Why? Because they all are taking care of themselves, right? They know how to take care of themselves. And maybe one day they'll take care of me, but let me give them so much space and time. Do you know what I mean? I think of the day my mother passes, and there's no estate, there's no property, there's no assets, there's nothing to leave behind but memories, love, and work, right? So I look at my kids and I go, whew, when that moment comes for us, what am I leaving them? You know what I mean? And what am I leaving them? Not just also physically, but also the story of who I am and the story of our shared time together. Ooh, I'm getting emotional. Ooh, I should have brought my Alvin Ailey fan. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna shut up now. Boy.
I'm really trying to embed in my kids, values, honesty, truthfulness, clarity. When we talk about, guilt, I try not to spend too much time on guilt. I try to get, to a point where we can have conversations about things. I'm not scared to tell my kids I'm sorry and I was wrong. You know, I don't leave those things there that, you know, parents are always perfect, or that you have to put up this facade of, you know, who's being in charge. You know, like I tell my kids when I'm leaving, you know, and because they all do it, you know, they don't want you to leave. They want to hold on to you. And I tell them, Dad has to go trade his labor for the house that we have, for the food that we eat, for the clothes that we wear. You know, that is my responsibility to you all, is to provide those things. You know, I would much rather be here with you. This is not about me being here, you being there. Dad has to go to work to get the money to trade his labor and his expertise so that we have a house and we have clothes and we have food. And it's so ingrained in them now that when we have, because we still have this conversation, Dad, don't go. I said, Dad has to go to work. And I say, do you know why Dad has to go to work? And they say, to get the money, to get the house so that we can get the toys that we want. You know, you had talked about, you know, they know when payday comes, they know when payday comes, and they expect these things, you know, like my kids always have these things. So I try to, you know, demonstrate for them a clarity in why we're doing these things and why we're making these choices that we have to make, and that it's not based on, you know, this you know, it's not based on emotion. It's based on a practicality of what I have to do, you know, for us to survive. And then I'm always just, you know, I want them to know when I mess up, you know, my daughter is beautiful, man. I mean, like a beautiful spirit. And if my son and I get into something, you know, she'll say, apologize to Buddy. Apologize to Buddy. And if I'm angry or something, I'll say, you know what? I'll take a breath. I'll think about it. Think about what I did. I think about how I could have maybe done that differently. And then I apologize to my son or to my daughter. And I say, hey, I'm sorry. I could have handled that better. I'm the adult in this room. I'm supposed to know a little bit more, you know? So I'm sorry that I handle it the way that I did handle it. You know, I'm trying to model for you the way that I want you to exist in the world, you know, and not carry some of the things that I carry with me. You know, I want to release that from you. And I want to release that from you because you're going to have kids one day too. And I want the things that I've gone on, the bad things that are in me, to end with me, you know, and for you not to carry them on and give them to, you know, to your children and to their children. So I try to really not be afraid to communicate with my kids, to not let them know. When my son was born, I promised myself that I would never ever lie to him. And we were walking to Ralph's the other day, and I said, and he said, that's not true. I said, have I ever lied to you? He said, not about real stuff, you know. Like he knows that I, you know, like I might say, but I don't, you know, like Dad can jump over a building, you know, like I might say something like, he's something that's so ridiculous that he knows that that's not true, you know. And then I say that, you know, but I always tell my kids the truth. You know, I never want them to feel as though they've heard a lie from me. They need to be able to trust us as parents. They need to be able to trust us. I don't tell them about, I remember I told my son, he had asked me about Santa Claus. I said, there's no such thing as Santa Claus. You know, like there's nobody that's coming here and giving you any toys. All right. It's me and your mom that are working very hard to provide for you these things, so that you can have them because you've asked for them and you want them and you've behaved in a certain way. And we think that this will bring you joy. I was like, but I remember still when I found out there was no Santa Claus. And I was like, why were you all lying to me about this thing? And I know that it created a schism between me and my parents at that point, because I was like, you all are lying to me about something. What else are you lying to me about? That was the question. What else are you lying to me about? So, you know, I knew that I would never, ever lie to my kids, you know, and I don't lie to them. And I find ways, if there's something that I don't want to tell them at that point, I say, I don't want to tell you because I don't want you to know about this right now, you know, and when I'm ready for you to know about something, I'll tell you what that is, you know, but I say it to them with love. And that's what I try to do things so that I'm not feeling guilty. And if I am feeling guilty, I go and I apologize.
I just want to uplift that Santa Claus thing for a second, because I've never believed in Santa Claus. I will not perpetuate the lie of Santa Claus. And I love the fact that you just say people, they need to know the truth. There's magical stories all around. I'll take you. Let's go see a Marvel movie. Okay, let's go see something about a superhero. But we're talking about labor and work. There's no magical man coming down the chimney to come give you anything. I'm sitting there working, taking 2 months to go, all right, when can we get the gift? This is what you want? No. You know, and that, and them understanding that there is magic in the world, but let's peek behind the curtain and actually see the work that's getting done. You know, because we also, let's be real, we live in a pandemic, and you know, you can get food magically sent to your door with just pressing a button, and just boom, oh, I can get groceries, boom, I can get Amazon. Like, they're growing up in that world. All they have to do is press a button. And I had to sit down and go, well, wait a second. There's a center where this happens, and someone has to ship that over there. And you have to tip this person. There's a whole process that you don't see. You're separating yourself from the work. Don't do that. Understand the cycle that you're participating in, and make sure that you see the whole track, because nothing magically happens. Those are people who are out there every day working, just like me, having families, no families, taking care of people, whatever. So you got to see that truth. So no Santa Claus.
No
Firmly in agreement. No Santa Claus. No Santa Claus.
I want to give a big shout out to my mom, Lynette Davis, right now, because she, got that Santa Claus thing out my head early. I remember going back to preschool and ruining Santa Claus for all the other students. That was quite a day too. But in the Jude household, ain't no Santa Claus either.
Yeah, yo, my son had said to me when I told him the story of that whole thing, his reaction to me was, "You're lying. There's Santa Claus." and it was like I was like, okay. I was like, son, I'll never ever lie to you. I remember I said I will never ever do that to you. I will always tell you the truth. And one thing that we have to do as family is always tell each other the truth. You know, I use Santa Claus as a moment to teach my son about the values that we have as a family, you know, and truthfulness is a value that we have as a family, because I can't help you. If you lie to me, I can't help you, you know, and that's why I'll never lie to you, because I never want you to see that your dad is a liar.
Right. Y'all, as we wrap up here, y'all, I want to end in celebration, because I was so excited just to get a chance to chat with you all. Like, you know, while our field is full of Black parents, Black fathers, specifically, we don't often get a chance just to sit and talk about what it is that we do and how we show up. So I just want to end it in celebration and ask you all just to close your eyes for me with a second. We are artists. Let's do some little art envisioning, and let's do some manifesting. We've talked about the future that we want to give our kids and things like that. But let's celebrate not just where you all have been and what you all have done, but envision, talk to me about when you close your eyes and you think about, all right, 10 years from now, a decade from now, 15 years from now, however far out in your future, and you've done the work for your children, celebrate what that looks like for us. And I'm just going to go just to get it started. In 15 years, my child will be, my oldest will be in college, and I'm really looking forward to celebrating my 50th birthday and dropping her off in college. And I'm celebrating the path that got us there, all the wins, all the losses that taught us something. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm also really looking forward to putting that second one into high school and getting them ready to a 4-year. They got 4 more years to get up out of here and go do something special. As you all close your eyes and you think about, again, 5 years out, 10 years out, 20 years, whatever it is for you all, share with us what you all see. What are you celebrating with your children? What are you celebrating about your shepherding and creating space for the people that you take care for?
Ooh. I'm going to be real. I'm celebrating that they have good credit. I'm celebrating that they own property. I am celebrating that they have a level of financial freedom where they can make choices and take risks, whether they want to start a business, whether they want to start a family, whether they want to travel. And the greatest thing I see for them in the future is for them to be able to look into the mirror and say, I see myself. I see myself. Not through the white gaze, not through the gaze of my parents, not through the gaze of my community, but I am here present, because we all know how hard, when we have seen it, we see it all the time. People fight to become themselves for whatever reason. Everyone's got their own journey. And that's the thing I've always wanted for my kids, and that they can look at themselves and go, I know who I am. And then every interaction they have, they are centered within themselves, and they are able, they have the values and a system to work forward towards the life that they want, whatever that is. So good credit, financial freedom, want some assets, and a good mirror. They can look at themselves and go, I see you. I see you. I see me. I think that's the greatest thing that we can give our children. And that I don't see myself as a role model. I see myself as a mirror that they can look at me and go, what life do I choose? I can go this way, I can go that way. And I'm like, I make these mistakes so that you don't have to. And there's going to be mistakes that you're going to make. But here's a playbook. Read it. Go through it. And let's talk about it. And then sometimes you see that fork in the road, go down that fork. So that's what I want for my babies. I love them so much. I love them with all. I love my 2 girls with all of my heart. And I think the thing that is powerful in this moment is we are talking about Black men who love. And it is not something we often see in our commercial society, and that we are capable of loving, and we want to be loved. And yeah. Woo.
That's thank you for that, brother. In 15 years, I can't even, 15 years, my kids are still, young, because they're on the younger side of this world. I tend to think out to when they're 25, because that's when their third childhood be ending, and they're really fully entering into adulthood. Their brains would be formed. So I look at my responsibility with them as getting them to that moment, even though your responsibilities to your kids never end. It's always there. Parents are always raising their children, always trying to impart some kind of lesson that we've learned, as we've walked down this road called life. So at 25, that's where my mind usually goes to. And I just want them to be happy, kind, truthful, honest. I want them to be fully realized in their life. I want them to have, grit and temerity, and know that, if they get knocked down, that's just a minor setback in where they're going in this world. I want them to be able to take care of themselves and to really be joyful human beings. That's what I want for my kids. I want them to hopefully be moving in a path that they're finding joyful. That's where I see them as being, and that would make me, that would make me feel very, very good, and make me feel very proud that they had decided that the values and goals that I had put out for them, that they had decided that those had value, that those were important to them, that they would be able to pass those things down to the generations that come, to make this world a better place. And that's what I envision for them, and that's what I'm trying to example out for them.
Y'all, thank you for dreaming with me, you all. This has been nurturing to me. I thank you all for holding the space down with me, creating it, co-creating it. I'm thankful. I feel that your children are blessed, that they have you all in their lives, and I definitely feel like I have been enriched just in the short time that we have been talking to you all. And I hope you, our audience for today's panel, have really enjoyed this. I want to encourage you to make sure that you check out the rest of the Black Motherhood and Parent Festival. Make sure you check out the new plays, check it out this fall. And I want to wish all of the dads and people who show up in that space, the father space, the dad space, regardless of how you show up there. I want to just wish you a happy Father's Day, and thank you very much on behalf of Freedom and Emmanuel. This is Jamil signing off. Wish you all a very, very happy Father's Day.